They ignore you, they stay distant, and yet you cannot stop thinking about them. Why is the pain of rejection stronger than the peace of acceptance? This is the dark psychological paradox of unrequited love, a compulsive obsession fueled by distance and fantasy.
It's this crazy thing, right? The more they pull away, the more intensely you're drawn in. Now, this isn't just bad luck in love. It's a powerful psychological loop. It's a kind of cognitive addiction that actually thrives on the very thing that should push us away, their absence. So today, we're going to pull this whole painful experience apart, not as some big mystery of the heart, but as a predictable, almost mechanical process that's happening inside your brain. A process that, once you really understand it, can be dismantled.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. To really get what's going on, we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the paradox of obsession itself. Then we'll dig into the hidden mind games that are really at play. After that, we'll map out the three-stage addiction cycle that builds the obsession. From there, we'll uncover the deep, unconscious motivations that drive this chase, and, most importantly, we'll lay out a clear, actionable plan to break free. Finally, we'll see how it all comes down to a fundamental choice you have to make: fantasy or reality.
All right, so let's set the stage here. This intense kind of unrequited love, it isn't just a simple feeling of longing. It's way more complex than that. It's a dynamic, a feedback loop that needs very specific conditions to really take hold and thrive. It's not random at all. It's a system. And understanding that system, starting with a particular kind of vulnerability, is the first real step toward taking it apart.
So where does this often start? Well, it turns out it really takes root for people with what psychologists call an anxious attachment style. This is basically an underlying insecurity, a deep-seated fear of being abandoned, and it comes with this intense need for closeness and validation. Now, this isn't some character flaw. It's usually a learned response from earlier in life, maybe a time when affection and security were pretty inconsistent. So when a distant person shows up, the brain sees a familiar, high-stakes challenge. I have to secure the validation that was so hard to get before. Winning over someone who is unavailable starts to feel like the ultimate proof that you are, in fact, worthy of love. Your mind just minimizes the reality of the rejection and instead zeroes in on the possibility of an incredible reward.
Now, when we talk about these mind games, it is so important to realize it's a two-way street. This isn't just about what the other person is doing. It's a two-part system. On the outside, you have the external stuff, those ambiguous signals, the sporadic texts, the occasional like on social media, those little moments of confusingly warm attention. We call those crumbs. But honestly, the more powerful, more dangerous game is the one happening inside your own head. That's the obsessive rumination, the hours you spend analyzing their behavior. And the most critical piece? It's the creation of this detailed fantasy narrative that explains away their distance and elevates them into this perfect, almost mythical figure.
And this, right here, is the psychological engine that drives the whole machine. It's called intermittent reinforcement, and it is one of the most powerful principles of conditioning that we know of. It explains exactly why those crumbs are so incredibly potent. I mean, think about a slot machine. You don't win every time you pull the lever, right? You mostly lose. But it's the unpredictable nature of that reward, that occasional, unexpected win that keeps you glued to the machine, pulling that lever over and over. Those crumbs of attention work the exact same way. See, an inconsistent reward is way more addictive than consistent affection because it puts your brain in this state of desperate hope. You become hooked on the chase itself, not the person.
Okay, so let's look at how these mind games actually build into a full-blown addiction. This isn't just some vague feeling that takes over. No, it's a structured, repeatable cycle. And once you understand these stages, you can actually see the process from the outside. You start to recognize the mechanics at play instead of just being swept away by it all. You become an observer of the pattern, not just a participant in it.
So the cycle has three really clear stages. First up, idealization and fantasy creation. This is where your mind builds a perfect, imaginary version of the other person. Then we have stage 2, addiction. This is where your brain gets chemically hooked on those unpredictable rewards of the chase. And finally, stage 3's compulsive rumination. Here, your mind works overtime to protect its huge emotional investment from the harsh light of reality. This is the loop that keeps the obsession going strong, even when all the evidence is screaming at you to stop.
So here's the absolute key to stage 1. You are not actually in love with the person. You're in love with an idea of them that you built. Their distance, the lack of real information about them, that's not an obstacle. It's a blank canvas for your imagination.
Your mind takes the few little positive details it has and it fills in all the massive gaps with this flawless, idealized character. For example, maybe they mention offhand they like a certain band. In your mind, that tiny detail just blossoms into this huge fantasy where you two share a deep, soulful connection over music. This idealization is a necessary first step, because you have to justify the intense effort you're about to put into the pursuit.
And that brings us right into stage 2, the addiction. When that person finally sends you a text after days of silence, your brain doesn't just calmly assess the situation, it gets a massive hit of dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical of motivation, of reward seeking. It's what tells your brain, hey, pay attention, this is important. And if you look at how the brain responds, it's not even a fair fight. That 75% dopamine surge completely hijacks your brain's reward system. It's screaming, yes, that felt good. Do whatever it takes to get that feeling again. It powerfully reinforces the chase and totally silences that tiny 25% voice of reason that's trying to point out the painful truth. Which of course leads us to the final and kind of self-perpetuating stage, compulsive rumination. Your mind simply can't handle the contradiction of investing so much emotional energy for such a tiny, inconsistent reward. So it becomes a justification factory, running 24/7. It works tirelessly, inventing these elaborate stories to explain away the rejection. You know the ones, oh, they're just really busy with work. They're probably just scared of how strong their feelings are for me. These stories, they protect the fantasy, but more importantly, they protect your emotional investment. Because admitting the truth, that they're just not that interested, means admitting all that energy you spent was wasted. And that's a huge psychological blow the mind will do almost anything to avoid.
Okay, so all of this begs a really big question, right? Why on earth would anyone willingly put themselves through such a painful, self-defeating cycle? I mean, the addiction cycle explains how the obsession keeps going, but it doesn't explain why it feels so incredibly compelling, so necessary in the first place. To understand that, we have to go deeper into the unconscious motivations that are really driving this whole thing.
This comparison really gets to the heart of the painful imbalance. Look, for the person on the other side, the motivation is usually pretty simple, even passive. They get to enjoy an ego boost, what some people call narcissistic supply, without any of the work or responsibility of a real relationship. It's validation on tap. But for you, the target, the motivation is so much deeper. It's this powerful, unconscious drive for what we can call wound resolution. It's a subconscious attempt to finally achieve mastery over an old, painful feeling, the feeling of not being good enough.
There's a name for this, and it's a really powerful concept in psychology: repetition compulsion. It's this unconscious pull toward people and situations that mirror a past wound. And this wound, it doesn't have to be some huge trauma. It could be from feeling overlooked as a kid or the sting of a really formative rejection as a teenager. The unconscious mind seeks to fix the past by reliving it. So you're not just chasing this one person, you are subconsciously restaging an old drama, desperately trying to write a different ending this time around. You're trying to prove, once and for all, that you can win this game, that you are worthy of love.
And here's where the brain makes a huge, and I mean huge, mistake. Your body is flooded with stress hormones like cortisol because of the anxiety of the chase. And it's also getting those hits of dopamine from the intermittent reinforcement. This creates a state of intense physiological arousal, a chaotic, urgent, anxious feeling. It feels like being on a roller coaster. And you mistake this physiological storm for proof of deep, profound love. You think, wow, if I feel this.
And this might be the single most damaging mind game you play on yourself. It's called the attribution error. Instead of looking at the situation and concluding, this person is unavailable and can't meet my needs, you conclude, this person is rejecting me because I'm not good enough. This one little error turns the whole situation inward, making it a judgment on your self-worth. It fuels the chase with this painful logic. If I can just be smarter, or funnier, or more successful, then they'll finally love me. And that keeps you trapped on this hamster wheel, endlessly trying to earn a love that was never really on the table to begin with.
Okay, we've taken the machine apart, we've looked at all the gears and the levers, we've defined the games, mapped the addiction cycle, and uncovered the deep motivation. Now it's time to move from just understanding it to doing something about it. Now we talk about how to break it. Because breaking free isn't just about willpower. It requires a clear, strategic defense plan to counteract every single part of this psychological machine.
So here's the game plan. It's a 3-step strategy. First, and this is maybe the most important, you have to implement what I call fantasy no contact. Second, you have to surgically cut off all sources of intermittent reinforcement. And third, you have to actively and consistently practice radical reality testing.
And let me tell you, these aren't just suggestions. They are non-negotiable countermeasures designed to starve the addiction of its fuel and give your brain a chance to finally heal.
All right, step 1, cutting off that intermittent reinforcement. And let me be crystal clear, this has to be a total blackout, because even a single crumb can reset the entire addiction cycle and send you right back to square one. This means blocking their number so you're not constantly checking your phone for a text that may never come. It means unfollowing and blocking them on every single social media platform, no exceptions. It means deleting old photos and conversations that you keep going back to. And this one's tough, but it might even mean telling mutual friends, hey, please, I don't want any updates about this person. You are systematically shutting down every single channel through which a crumb can get through and light up that dopamine cycle again.
But cutting off the external contact is only half the battle. You also have to start practicing fantasy no contact. This is an internal job. It means you have to actively stop yourself from ruminating. When you catch your mind playing out future scenarios or replaying old interactions, you have to consciously shut it down. You are starving that internal justification factory. This goes hand in hand with that final step, radical reality testing. This is an active mental exercise where you confront the fantasy with cold, hard facts. You have to force yourself to see the person for who their actions show they are, not who you hope they are. This means saying the objective truth out loud. Something like, this person's behavior consistently shows they are not interested in a relationship with me. Say it. Write it down. You are training your brain to prioritize the hard data of their actions over the emotional pull of your fantasy. You are actively choosing to believe reality. And that brings us to the final fundamental point of this entire explainer. Because after all the analysis of cycles and chemicals and compulsions, it all comes down to a single, conscious choice that you and only you have the power to make.
So, what does this all really mean? It comes down to this really critical lesson about what you're feeling. Look at this comparison. The intense, chaotic, painful feelings you're experiencing in this dynamic, they are not proof of how deep or real your love is. They are proof of how deep the addiction is. They are the clear signature of a connection built on fantasy and scarcity. Real, reality-based love isn't the frantic, painful chase. It's characterized by a sense of calm, security, mutual respect. That pain you feel, it's not a measure of love. It's a signal that something is fundamentally, deeply wrong.
Let that just sink in for a second, because it's the ultimate takeaway here. Love built on reality is calm, and love built on fantasy is always, always painful. If your connection is defined by anxiety and desperation and pain, you're not in the presence of great love. You're in the grip of a powerful fantasy.
So let's bring it all together. We've seen that this kind of painful obsession isn't some mystery of the heart. It's a predictable system. It all starts with those hidden mind games, where a person's ambiguous signals, the intermittent reinforcement, act as the fuel. But the real engine is internal. It's your own mind's incredible capacity for fantasy creation, which builds an ideal that just doesn't exist. This creates a relentless addiction cycle, kept alive by compulsive rumination, as your brain just works overtime to justify its investment. And underneath it all is that deep, unconscious drive for wound resolution, the attempt to rewrite an old story. But here's the most important part. Understanding the machine is how you dismantle it. Awareness breaks the loop. By choosing to cut off the crumbs, by actively practicing fantasy no contact, and by committing to radical reality testing, you're no longer a victim of this cycle. You are making a conscious choice. The choice to step out of the painful, chaotic storm of fantasy and into the quiet, calm certainty of reality. The only question left is, which one will you choose?